Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 1 year anniversary of Team Tim and
Yeah.
Jesse. like, Tim pinged me the other day and he's like, dude, you realize it's been a year? And I was like, what? No, no, it can't be. And actually, it's been
A year and
almost,
3 days or something.
no,
Yeah.
it's actually been a year and a month,
Oh wow.
right? Let me do this real quick. Our very
Okay.
first one was on June
Ah.
15th with the inaugural whatever. So it was actually a year and a month was our very
Wow.
first one, right? And Jesse who?
It's Uncle Jesse. Um.
Hey, so I'm Tim Golden, founder and CEO of Compliance Scorecard. Mr. Schnurr is not with us. Apparently, he wanted to golf today instead of celebrate birthday stuff. And obviously, we're here with our good friend Jesse. Jesse, take it away.
Hey everyone. Jesse Miller with Power PSA Consulting. We help MSPs build scalable and profitable VCSO programs. Yeah. I. It's funny because in fashion of how we kind of shoot from the hip on this show, right? We're like, oh, let's do an anniversary episode. Oh, but Tim's not here, and we're just gonna do it. So I feel like
We're
I should
just
have
gonna do
a little handful of confetti and just be like, yay!
it. Well, wait. So I got my duckies over here. Yay! Throw my duckies in the air.
There you
Like
go.
my little juggle duckies. Anyways, yeah, it's so interesting because you know we kind of Tim and I kind of started this. We, as you all know, we met as part of the Pitch It program, actually competing products, which was
Mm-hmm.
fine,
Yeah.
and we just really kind of established this friendship. And then he'd be like texting me and be like, dude, did you just see what happened? And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, let's jump on LinkedIn and just do it live.
Yeah.
And, we kind of just one off these things. And, as we realized, the whole premise was to really help MSPs, right? To kind of
Yeah.
build this community of learning and this community of like shift left mentality, right? That was
Mm-hmm.
really like how we started was shifting left of boom. Now we've had a lot of guests over the years so far, right, Jesse? Let me pull up some of these here.
Yeah, and it's same thing as you're like, hey, we hardly knew each other. I think Alex Farling introduced you and I way back when originally, and you're like, hey, you want to come on this live stream? And I said, okay, sure. And then we got done. You're like, wow, that was really good. You just want to be our co-host? I said, okay, sure, sounds good. And
Yeah, I don't
the
even
rest was
remember. I was
history.
trying to find that recording with us, and I don't even know where the hell it is.
Who
Oh,
knows?
no, that was 5 months ago. It's got to be here somewhere. I'm over here like, let's do this real quick. Trying to figure out like where was that one with you and Jesse and Tim? Like it's somewhere here.
It's
I mean,
somewhere.
way back, like when we were doing. Oh, there it is. 1 year ago,
Oh
maybe,
wow. Oh
maybe
yeah.
way back when I started doing this, and
Yeah.
it was either it was on Compliance Scorecard or it was on Fort Mesa. We were kind of doing things back. Oh, look, there's
Mm-hmm.
another one, right? Another one, right? So,
Yeah.
gosh, where the hell was this? It was way back in the day, right? Oh, there's Jesse again a year ago, right? So I was just trying to remember, like, I don't even know how far back it went, Jesse. It could have been this first one, cybersecurity. What's the missing piece of my stack?
Maybe.
It could have been, which
Yeah.
was
I
almost
don't know.
a little over a year ago. Just you, Jesse, you, Tim, and I kind of chit chatting. But it's a little
Yeah.
bummer that we don't have
That
Tim
very
here
well might have been.
bantering with us. You know. So I thought maybe do you want to kind of look back at some of the episodes and maybe talk about some of them?
Yeah, I thought for me that's what I wanted to do today is just look back on some episodes and talk through our takeaways because we like to do this. This is like an extended version of the takeaway. I
Yeah,
just wanted to look at some
yeah.
episodes and be like, what were some takeaways? And because we've had some great guests, and I think I've learned a lot just from people that have come on and some perspectives that they had, and I think that's where I see the channel and the MSP community going. Although there's still more work to be
Mm,
done. I've been in this industry for about 15 or maybe almost 20 years at this point. And when I first got in, it was a very closed off industry in general, right? MSPs didn't want to share information. You were always, who's my competitor? What are they doing? And I think that speaks a little bit to the regional aspect of how MSPs used to operate. Now, as we've gotten into more of a remote or nationwide type of, you can get customers in every corner, that's opened up. But I think what attracted me to the show was the ability to come together and have competitors on and have co-opetition, right? Where we talk about leveling up the MSP community, and I see that becoming more and more prevalent. And at least the people that I want to work with are thinking that way. So I think this is important, and so that's what I wanted to do, is to go through some of this today and just see what we can take away and reminisce a little bit about what we've done in the past year.
Yeah, reminisce, right? So, speaking of birthdays, I just had one a week ago, and was supposed to do something with the family, and everybody got sick. So I didn't actually have a birthday. Well, I had a birthday, but I didn't actually have a birthday. I'm like, what? So we're actually doing it this afternoon as soon as Team Tim, apparently. And so my virtual assistant, my project manager, my chief wrangling officer, quote unquote, who's also my daughter, blocked today off on my calendar. And I was like, why'd you block the day off? We got Team Tim. And she's like, no, you don't. I'm like, oh, yeah, we do. And so, anyways, but yeah, let's just pull this up here. Maybe pull a couple of I don't know how far back we want to go. Oh, some of these ones with Wes on like getting the seat at the table. We did one with Wes. We did one with Kyle and Alex. That whole getting the seat at the table thing, I thought were really, some really good pieces out and nuggets out of that. Right? Do you remember that one?
Yeah. The getting the seat at the table is super foundational for me, and just it's something. I think for me, when we did that episode, that was one where I said, "Hey, there's somebody else out there that gets it." Right.
Yeah.
So I had been preaching, having built VCSO programs, starting in like 2014, 2015, had been talking about this stuff and using this stuff to, become that trusted advisor with our clients and level up to the next premium level of co-managed and SME type clients, right? And a lot of times it felt like I was yelling into the void. And so, getting to know the empath guys over the last year, and then having Wes on, and having him speak to that, I think was it was encouraging for me, because it said, hey, there's other people out that understand this and that are helping enable MSPs to have these conversations with their customers and talk about this intelligently. So for me, that was kind of like felt like an epoch making moment in the MSP community at large, because there's this swell of voices that are starting to get behind this cyber risk led approach to business discussions with your clients that are happen to be about cybersecurity, right?
Yeah, and I think kind of back to what you said a few minutes ago, like as MSPs, we were always so isolated, right? And we were always so like my stuff. Right, mine. Like what's that TV? What's that movie with all the little birds? Mine. Right,
oh, yeah. Nemo.
There you go. With all the little birds saying mine. And so, but I think we've started to see this shift, which I really like, and that is, MSPs actually starting to work together. It's funny because, I was at an MSP, here in the seacoast of New Hampshire, and I went back and had a Facebook conversation with another MSP that's local here, just like checking in, hey, how are things going? But then I scrolled through the message history from like 2019, 2018, and I was like, and even in that conversation in 2019, in that message history, there was like that, it's not combative, but like the my turf, right? Don't encroach on my turf, right? And so I checked in, hey Mike, how's it going? Blah 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 blah, and then I started scrolling back, and I was like, oh, we were both in that mindset of my turf.
Yeah.
And now the conversation just last night and was like, things are going really well. Maybe we could do some work together. I need boots on the ground. Blah 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 blah. And well, I'm not there anymore, so I can't do boots on the ground. But that whole industry that has shifted from mine to ours, right? And then you fast forward that into let's have the risk conversation, as you were saying, right? And kind of all of us trying to work together around that.
Right. Well, I mean, it's interesting. So you think about that, contrast that with, I think it was last week who we had on, right? Ostendio, which is direct
Yeah.
competitor to Compliance Scorecard, right?
Yeah.
And
With Paul
and
from Ostendio, listener.
right, but we're all, we're all friends, and we all are in it to help each other win. And so I've seen that especially in the vendor community, right? Is people being invested in just helping others succeed and helping bring others along the way. Kevin Clune is one of those people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Who's just
Yeah.
wants to see when I was having a conversation with him recently, and he said that the reason he does it is he remembers trying to break in and how hard it was and how many mistakes he made. And he's like, I'm just trying to help other people not have that same barrier. And so I think if MSPs can get along that same way and help bring up and comers up in the industry, it's only going to be helpful for everybody. And interestingly enough, like if you think about it, it's almost like having a farm team. If you're looking to create a
Yeah.
platform MSP, why wouldn't you build a farm team, right? So
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And so, as Wes pointed out, I think if I remembered one of those conversations, and the key takeaway from getting a seat at the table, if I
Mm-hmm.
remember what I talked about then, is probably what I would say right now too, which is, speak in terms that your customer can relate to, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm remembering, like, and I say that a lot, right? Don't go in and talking about ones and zeros, bytes and bits, and acronyms. If they're, if they're, maybe they're a farm like Jesse, and go in there and talk about, cows and things like that, and affected the hay, like relate
Mm.
the conversation in vernacular and terms that your customer uses, right? I
Right.
think that was
Right.
probably one of my key takeaways from that one.
Yeah.
Speak to them like they know how to relate to you.
Yeah.
What else do we have?
I was going to say another one that sticks out in my mind that I really enjoyed was the one we actually pre-recorded. I think it was around New Year's with Kevin, talking about talking about
Not
the
Kevin
SEC
Alder.
required. Yeah, Kevin
This
Adler.
one.
There you go. Yep,
Kevin
Kevin
Adler.
Adler with
Yeah.
with the SEC HIPAA FTC news. So I think the
Yeah.
reason that sticks out in my mind is because this was right around the time, or maybe not right around, but following the time that that SEC rule had become final. And again, it's probably my bias because I have clients who are SEC regulated, and have in the past built vCISO programs for SEC regulated clients. But there was a lot going on in the industry, and I just thought Kevin had some really great insights on that, and there was some good conversations around that, and that really set the stage for, because governance is really a focus of the new rule. As NIST 2.0 was coming out, and this whole focus that we have on governance. Now, just think about that for a minute. How much we're talking about governance compared to 6 months ago. That is wild in of itself, and how fast this
It is.
industry changes, right? Like, I
Yeah.
love it
Well,
because we're. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
now I was going to say CIS just came out with 8.1 like 2 weeks
Right.
ago and added a
Right.
whole governed domain.
Right.
Side note, it exists in compliance scorecard as of this morning.
Nice.
You can do this. You can do CIS 8.1 in our
Mhm.
platform as of this morning.
That's
Sorry,
great.
shameless plug.
That's,
But you're exactly right. I have been preaching that govern function for years,
mm-hmm.
and it took NIST years to actually
Right.
get there.
Right.
It took CIS a couple of months,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What they go from 8 to 8.1 and added the govern function, but
Right.
that kind of goes right into kind of like the power grid stuff too, Jesse. The vCISO offering, right? Everybody asks me, what does it mean to govern, right? And I get, and actually, a good friend Joe at Lion Guard was the one that stumped me. So, hey, Joe, and Jesse, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. So, you tell me, what does it mean to govern?
That's, so, in terms of what I think of as governance, it's a process that's executed to create a consensus, top-down driven approach to cybersecurity for the organization. That's how I see govern in the cybersecurity function. And it is interesting that you mentioned the power grid, because we were literally talking about this today. We do our office hours and do a lesson on whatever we're working on, and try to answer questions around that. So user group type of environment. But today was on the weekly cadence reports and how to the structure for those and how we build them and how to think about delivering them. And I was contrasting two different types of clients. Some examples from some clients, like this is a client that the executive team was not invested in security, and this is a client that the executive team is invested in security. And so here's the things we're talking about. Here's how we have to approach it. But it was interesting for me to see that, as I was teaching the lesson, I've been doing this for clients, but to just actually see the kind of the breadcrumbs of governance work their way through the organization and talking about how this, and this is the weight, the worth, how a VCISO is worth their weight in gold to a client. It's because you go into an organization that has an executive team that's not invested and you put in some really good governance processes and you kind of create like a guerrilla warfare system within the organization to hold people accountable. And all of a sudden governance starts to happen because we're creating accountability and we're evidencing due care from the levels that we're at. And when the executive team says, oh, we need this, say, guys, we've been asking for this for 6 months. And so now we need the budget. And so that was actually evidenced in some of the things we were talking about. So sorry to go on a bit of a monologue there, but it's exciting to me to see how that governance works its way through the process if you do it properly as a VCISO, right?
Yeah. And I love that, right? So, that it's all about the process, right? The actual root word of governance, to govern or to guide, right? It comes from that whole process of guiding the ship through the channel, right? And you're guiding your customer through a process of better security, better compliance, better business practices, and better business outcomes, right? So I love seeing the fact that, heck, we talked about this 6 months ago, SEC, HIPAA, FTC. FTC has kind of been the hidden seatbelt law that is going to, click it or ticket. It's going to start happening. In fact, it already has started happening. I've been watching a couple of suits coming through, legal suits and findings in the last probably 3 or 4 weeks. And if they just happen to have a little governance, a little process, a little policy.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens with. Yeah.
Interesting to see what happens.
I think I've got some lag going on, so apologize there. Yeah. Got some lag.
All right. I was going to say, are we all caught up now?
No, I was going to say. Doesn't seem like it. What was I going to say? Oh, so another episode that I thought was super interesting that I wanted to just quickly talk about was with AJ Lease and the approach that I'm hearing more. This is kind of something that's new that I'm hearing more people start to talk about, and that's continuous tabletopping. I don't know if you've seen this yet, Tim, but it's I'm just hearing rumblings of it. And so when we had AJ on, and he talked about his approach for what he's doing in involving the whole organization in the tabletop exercise, I think is something really interesting and the type of end user training that I hope to see more of in the next year or two here.
I'm scrolling through the feed, but I don't see AJ here. Conferences.
It might be Anthony Lease.
No. Well, let me just do this. Maybe let me pull this up, and depending on your lag, we might see it. That was our off the cut, or maybe it didn't actually get posted here. It could possibly be over on our actual website. Endocrinologist. Oh, well, anyways, I'll stop. So coming back to the idea of continuous tabletops, right? That's what you're asking about?
Yeah.
So, our good friend Bob Miller is doing that IR game, right? And it was almost like a continuous tabletop. It goes right back to the govern function, right? So, you think about disaster recovery and business continuity planning, right? It's great that you have that, but are you testing it? Are you making sure that your data is getting backed up? Like I walked into a customer as an MSP that their MSP said they were doing backups. We're obviously we, new customer, blah blah blah. We're taking them over the whole thing, and I'm kind of logging into their server, and I'm looking at that. At the time, it was Symantec backup exec. Remember that, right? And so,
Oh
so I'm
yeah.
logged in. I get the credentials. I'm finally logged in, and I'm like, their backups have been failing every day for months,
Right.
months.
Right.
Like, okay, if they happen to have an incident, they wouldn't have their data, right? And so,
Yeah.
even just something as like a continuous tabletop of your backups,
Yeah.
right? Are you doing that at least, I don't know, quarterly, right?
Yeah.
We actually put a human responsible to make sure that they were being done every day, but
Mm-hmm.
then we were doing, mock restores quarterly, and then we were doing full bare metal restores once a year,
Right.
and
Right.
then tracking all that change management and governing all that along
Yeah.
the way, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're going to need to start to see that kind of work more.
Yeah. I mean, aside from even any regulatory requirements around that, that's just good business, and
Mm.
it's a CYA at the end of the day, right? If you get into any sort of legal litigation, the customer saying you caused us business operation downtime, and so we want to recoup some sort of loss from you. If you can demonstrate, hey, we've been testing our backups, we've been performing, due care in terms of our cybersecurity program, that makes a lot better of a case. And I think you can when you can evidence that, it's important. So yeah, the whole governance piece is again rears its head there. Yeah.
It does.
I know I saw you dropped in the chat here. You wanted to bring up one other episode, so go ahead.
Well, lots of other episodes,
Yeah.
right? So we spent a lot of time over this past year talking about insider threat.
Mm,
There's 3 or 4 episodes that I'm just seeing here over here talking
yeah.
about. Hold on, let me just do this real quick. Talking about malicious intent, right?
Yeah.
Insider threat. There's quite a
Yeah.
few episodes where we talked about that, and as MSPs, I don't even think it's something that comes up when
Yeah.
in conversation,
Yeah.
right? We talk about the endpoint and the end user phishing and the training and the backups, but
Mm-hmm.
what about when the salesperson leaves and takes the list with you?
Right. Right. Yeah, I would say that I really enjoyed those episodes when we talked about that, right? Because um, as as a VC, so a lot of the time you're coming into a mess, for lack of a better word. A company hires you because they don't have a security program and they want you to build one. So you're just trying to get enough budget to build a serviceable protection and detection program. And that
Mm-hmm.
insider threat is a day two type of thing a lot of times, right? So that's more when you get into maintenance mode and you start uh, working on reducing those chunks of residual risk. So I think that was super important for MSPs to hear, and I know I took a lot away from that discussion, and just some basic things to think about that we haven't been, and it goes back to having proper business discussions with your clients that happen to be around cybersecurity. So again,
Right.
we get focused on like stack, and I mean when we do our stack episodes, right? It's everyone we get the most views every time. So it's like this self sustaining problem. It's like clickbait, right? Like you want to do the things that get more views. I don't think we subscribe to that, but my point is that when you can talk about insider threats as a business risk and say, oh, by the way, yeah, if we do this cyber control, we get some mileage on the insider risk program as well. I think you're head and shoulders above any other MSP that's going to come in there and talk to your clients like that.
Exactly.
Likewise, it's just in parallel to that. This is fresh because it's something I was working with a client. Is asset management, right? So talking about asset management, and we say, okay, how many times as cyber professionals do we get in our own lane and say we need to get asset management done so we can check the box and say yes to that on the risk assessment and get a risk reduction? But what does that? I mean, that's good. You should do asset management. You need asset management to run the cyber program and appropriately protect things. But what does that mean to the business, right?
Right.
So taking this asset management idea and saying, okay, how can we provide business value through the asset management program? Well, so one of the ideas was to create an application in Power Apps that allows individual departments to publish their own assets or their own applications like SaaS applications or whatever line of business applications they have that other people can see. So now we're creating business optimization for the organization by saying, okay, if this department needs something from this department's system, they go look at that and say, who's the business owner? I need to create this integration. We just created a much more streamlined means of communication within the organization for the business to be able to get
Right.
things done. And so everyone's like, okay, yeah. Talking to the CFO about it, he's like, yeah, I want everyone on board with this. We need to do this. I mean, how
Yeah.
have you heard a CFO say we need to do asset management? I literally heard that this week. And so that's when
That's
you
awesome.
have those types of conversations, that's what it means. And that speaks back to the insider threat piece that you're talking about, right? If we don't know what we have, how can we protect it? Well, also, let's get some business mileage out of it as well, right?
Exactly. And that is interesting, right? Because you know, there's a lot of overlap on tool sets at the end customer, right? I work for an organization that had 4 or 5 different survey platforms,
Mm-hmm.
right? They had a bunch of different ways of doing surveys and the costs associated, not just to mention the risk, but you've heard me say that have the conversation about copiers across businesses and across locations, right? So, being able to take that asset management piece and compliance scorecard can do that. Being able to take that asset management piece and tie it to a business outcome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then back to the insider threat. Now you know where your stuff is. Oh my God, we
Right.
have 3 CRMs that we did
Right.
not know about.
Right.
And the Excel spreadsheet sitting on newbie's salesperson's desktop.
Yeah.
That why does he have that on his desktop?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So that's the insider threat part is 3 different SaaS apps for one particular thing. They're all CRMs. The data is duplicated in both, and only Jesse has access to that one.
Right. And we don't even know that's out there. So when Jesse leaves the company, we didn't disable his login. And the batch is still replicating data over every night, and he's just logging in and just getting all that marketing intel that he shouldn't have. Now, of course, he's committing a felony now, but
well, yeah, but
yeah, how do we even know, right? So
how do we even know? So, probably over the last 15 minutes or so here, 20 minutes or so, there's also a lot of conversations about Trustmark, with Wayne and CompTIA and Chris and team over there.
Yeah.
And I think talking about Trustmark, I think that might be something that, at least for me, that's literally why, in a sense, why we started this, right? So that MSPs had a roadmap to get on the left side of boom to figure out where they are, do an internal assessment based on something by a big organization like CompTIA,
right.
and follow their framework, right?
Yeah, I think it's an attempt, and I think it's the way that I'd like to see things done. Is that self-policing versus government mandated regulations, right? So if we can take a standard and say, okay, this is what we as MSPs are going to do to guarantee that we're secure and guarantee that we're eating our own dog food, and that we're securing our environment and therefore our clients' supply chains, and evidencing that, like I talked about, right? I think that is the way we want to do things, rather than have the monolith of regulations pushed on us. Because an independently governed body is always going to be able to be more nimble than government, right? We see that with the CMMC rule. So how long has it been to publish that? Now we're already you got to use this rev versus the other rev. So I digress, but I think that's what we want to do, and so I think it's important. And I've seen a lot of MSPs in that program. I was in those group calls as an advisor for a fair amount of time, and it was cool to see how MSPs would start to come along and start to really get a foothold on what it means to do proper compliance and proper governance. And so that is great for them, but it's also going to affect the way they approach their customers and the way they deliver services. So I think it's super important what CompTIA is doing over there.
Well, yeah, having it, do I say a shameless plug? I was fortunate enough to be part of the CompTIA team building out the
Mm-hmm.
controls.
Mm-hmm.
Right, we looked at ISO, we looked at SOC 2, we looked at 851, we looked at cyber insurance. We brought in a lot of different resources, a lot of different controls. How I feel about cross mapping, but
It's
um,
awesome, right?
but
Is that no?
well, as long as you're following NIST's 8477 in their model for cross mapping, then yes.
Okay.
However, spending that time in that summer with their team, and people way smarter than me, and kind of all of us working together to be like, let's put a framework together. Let's put a thing together as CompTIA, right? Global nonprofit, voice in the channel, like big deal. It's not just like Tim and Jesse going to build a thing. It's
Right.
kind of a
Right.
really big organization
Yeah. Yeah.
that is also not a government organization. So they have that nimbleness and that flexibility, unlike the
Mm-hmm.
feds do. And
Yeah.
so spending that time and putting together the list of the controls,
Yeah.
we wanted to make sure in part that it was obtainable, but it covered a lot of the different components of an MSP business.
Right.
Right. And so we talked a lot about that on Team Tim here. We've had, Wayne and others from CompTIA on here about being that source of truth to vet those MSPs, because we live in this world of third party, fourth party, ninth party risk now. And so if we don't, as a community,
Right.
regulate ourselves, it's going to come to us. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was really, really,
Yep. Yeah.
excited over the years to do the CompTIA ones. So, what else?
Yeah.
What else?
You
Oh,
know,
you know what?
uh,
Go ahead.
talking about that just made me think of like we cannot we cannot forget about Matt Lee and the vendor initiative to map CIS to map
Yeah,
vendors to CIS controls. I mean, that was a huge episode in my opinion, right?
yeah, that was actually
It,
just recently. I
it's
was looking for
interesting
that.
because yeah,
Where is that one? I can't find it. I'm looking for
I
it,
don't
but I
know if
know what
I
you're
don't know if
talking
I'm
about.
lagging or what.
You
So
are.
yeah, no, so that to me was something that was super cool to see behind the scenes of what's been going on because I knew that it was happening, right? But and I was excited about it. I had but I had some questions, right? Uh, having done that really early on for the MSP where we built our first CISO program in 2014, 2015, that was the exact approach we took. We said, let's sit down with our stack, with the vendors we have, let's map them to the CIS controls, let's find out where we don't have answers for CIS controls, and let's talk about getting other partners or bringing in new services or new tools. But that was all a self-contained exercise, right? Self-attesting exercise. So to see somebody with the resources of PAX 8 leverage Matt and so many other smart people that have and let Matt kind of take the ball and run with it. Right, it was super exciting for me to see, and I think the fruits of that are really going to be formative down the road here for MSPs as we seek to standardize and create a more codified way about proving and evidencing that we're doing the right things for our clients. So to me, I really enjoyed that episode, and I thought, obviously, Matt is always going to hold everybody's attention with when he gets on the mic there. So
Yeah, I was just trying. I was listening to you. I know my wife yells at me all the time. Like, you should look at the camera when people are talking, and I'm like, I'm an auditory learner. I should never look at it as long as I'm hearing it. But you're right. I was just looking for the episode in our previous episodes. But
gotcha.
both Tim and I have had the privilege to work with Matt and team building out this
Mm-hmm.
control mapping, right? Building out
Right.
this entire process of vetting vendors against specific controls of CIS and actually
Mm-hmm.
providing the truth and efficacy of it. Just
Yeah.
because I say I do a thing as a vendor doesn't mean it's actually right or not. It's just my marketing fluff. but
Right.
utilizing, what Matt, Paxi, and our team have been building. Well, I'm not taking credit. They have been building is going to really be able to provide that efficacy of, yeah, like
Yeah.
some third party against a known framework
Mm-hmm.
walked you through a series of questionnaires that
Right.
allowed you to actually say Tim governs or
Yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Jesse v CISOs or doesn't.
We do it all with the VCs now. It's the so about that is, pragmatically, what does this mean for MSPs? So let's take it back and talk to about what the business benefits are. Is cutting through the marketing fluff, right? Cutting through the buzzwords. I can go look and say, yep, this meets this, this, and this. I don't have these, or it overlaps with a little bit of what I'm doing, but I could make some savings here by bringing this tool and maybe consolidating this one. So I think there's huge benefits in just clarity with what solutions are actually doing for MSPs. So I think that's a big piece of what's exciting about it to me, right?
Well, and for me on the other end, like I've just like you did, actually started with NIST 853 as opposed to CIS.
That's one way to start.
And spent the last 20 years mapping tools to controls in 853 or FedRAMP moderate equivalent.
Right.
And then trying to stay up with it when it went from version 3 to version 4 to version 5. Now with all the tailoring, it's a disaster. It's hard to do, but thank goodness there's a community around that is now doing this for CIS that I don't have to maintain anymore.
Right, exactly.
And it really is going to help that third-party risk management too, right? It's going to help that. Well, we do 6 of the 110 controls or whatever it is. We cover those things, and we cover those things in one of 3 types of categories that the program, is working towards: fully, not fully, partially, all the things. So, we had a couple of good episodes on AI as well. We had Jimmy on. We've had a couple of good episodes on marketing. Lots of spicy topics around conferences.
Oh, conferences.
On the conferences.
I'll just be honest. Conferences take it out of me, man. I may play an extrovert on TV, but I'm definitely not one. And all day on the conference floor, that takes it out of you, man.
I'm right there with you. We've done a couple conferences together. We're gonna do CompTIA here coming up. We'll see you there. CompTIA coming up. I'm literally jumping on a plane in 2 days, and I am on the conference circuit for 3 weeks straight. I'm back August 6th.
Yeah.
It does suck the life out of you. But, the conversations we've had here on Team Tim have been, are they worth it? Are they not? What, I'm going to be a little vulnerable here. It's Friday. It's 102 degrees right now. So I'm going to be a little vulnerable. One of the challenges that I always had with conferences is that high school clique. Right. So, they are cliquey, or at least I see cliques.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. And, I try to feel like I'm a social person, but there's a lot of times where I just don't feel like I belong, especially since I'm not drinking anymore. As the day progresses and the evening progresses, I'm like, I don't even really want to be around you. And I don't know, the click thing, it's there's a couple of people in the channel that I've kind of had personal conversations around that. I'm like, dude, this feels like middle school dance. And I'm like the guy hiding under the bleachers, afraid to come out and have the conversation. And sometimes I feel like that at the conference,
Yeah.
It's, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like human nature, right? Things are always, big social situations like that are always going to be cliquey by default, because people want to be in a group where they feel protected and comfortable, right? To avoid feeling that way. So you're going to see cliques form if people get along. they like talking to each other, they're going to do that, right? So it's going to be that way by nature. But I think that it's a good remembrance for all of us to keep an eye out and try and make sure we're being open and welcoming to anyone we see come along, right? It's as a vendor, you do it more than as an MSP. I remember going as an MSP with our group, and we're like, yeah, we're going to sit here in our clique because this is comfortable and this is safe, and we can ward off
Right.
the vendors, right? As a vendor, you're like, I need to go talk to a bunch of MSPs to let them know how awesome my product is and how much I can help them, right? So you got to break through that. But I think as a general rule, it's a good mantra to be open and welcoming and try to break through that stuff. So thanks for bringing that up, and I think it's important to keep in mind as we head out into conference season here.
I know. So I tried at PAX 8 Beyond to like not fall into my own conference habits,
Mm,
right? Not to fall into like, oh, I'm just gonna hang out with the one or two people that I know because I know them
right.
and I'm like, and well, yeah, you're right. Like as introverted as I am, doesn't come
Hmm.
off that way, but it's really difficult to like walk up to somebody that you've never talked to, that you don't know where they're from. And what gets even harder is when you walk up to somebody and they're like from a different country and they like the language barrier, and that happened
Right.
to me
Right. Right.
a couple of times at PAX 8, and it was like I had to slow down and have a little less. I don't want to say sophisticated, like slow the conversation down, but I
Yeah.
made it a really big point at the last conference at PAX 8 Beyond to talk to at least 5 people that I had never seen before, and it
Nice.
kind of walk and look at the situation and like, okay, this is the high school dance. There's this clique, and you have those people, one or two or three, on the outskirts.
Yeah.
That's who I went and talked to,
There you
and it
go.
was hard. It's hard because
Yeah.
yeah, at event like in as a vendor, that's kind of my job.
Right.
But I don't approach the conversations like, hey, let me tell you about my product. Like, no, I try to make
Yeah.
it personal. But yeah. So lots of conversations we've had on Team Tim about conferences. Kind of scrolling through some other stuff here. The one we did um, where's that? With Robert, right? We've had Robert on a couple times
That
talking about his big Kaseya thing. I loved the one. I loved the title. Let me see if I can pull this up. Hold on. And that was actually a really great episode. Hopefully, it doesn't start playing.
eat
Yeah.
your selling vegetables.
Right. Right. You
Yeah.
remember that one with Gillette?
Yep.
Um,
Robert Gillette's awesome. He's just an awesome dude in general. Like, I don't know if you've had a chance to chat with him at extended length or not, but he's just a good guy. Like, he just wants the best for people. He wants people to succeed, right?
mhm,
And he
mhm.
cares about people, and so it's just one of those people you want to be around, right? But also, and I think it's why the dojo is so successful, is because he's creating this atmosphere where MSPs can feel safe to practice and fail at sales conversations, right?
Yeah.
And actually take
Yeah.
something away and learn. But yeah, eat your selling vegetables, because what did we just talk about? It's the same thing at conferences. Like, it's uncomfortable to get out, and if you're not naturally extroverted and you have to sell, right? That's if you're an MSP founder, you need to sell, and if you're bad at it, it's scary and you don't want to do it. So, but it's like eating your vegetables. You got to get out there and do it, and you have to do it. And so, I just think it's really cool what he's doing over there, and I've had chance to go and join and do some of those pitches, right? Like an MSP. I think I've been in the dojo maybe 5 or 6 times at this point, and I'd say about 4 of them I felt really good about, and about 2 of them I was like, oh, I can't believe that was recorded. That's terrible. Getting a call here.
Oh,
Yeah. But the thing was, though, is that going through that, it's like, okay, I'm not going to make that mistake again, right? So it's the eating your vegetables, right? You grow and you become better. So yeah, I really enjoyed that episode, and I really think what he's doing over there at the MSP dojo is huge.
well, we did a couple of role plays. In fact, you just mentioned, Paul Redding with one of our competitors just last two
Yeah,
weeks ago,
yeah,
Indio. Like, we did a role play just last week, and we've done them. And I think that's really important for MSPs to have an opportunity to like learn from others and practice with each other.
Yeah. It goes
Right?
it, so it goes back to that closed off versus open thing, right? Like, who do you want to be? Do you want to be a scarcity mindset, or you want to be a growth mindset? And a growth mindset says, I'm going to come into this with open arms and with a loose grasp, right?
Yep.
And in doing that, somehow I'm actually going to end up with more, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It's funny because we talked about this in the beginning. Like, there's an MS. So when I had my MSP, there's a much bigger MSP here in the state.
Okay.
Their CISO is my cousin. My lead tech, his wife, is their salesperson.
Oh wow.
But we never did anything together. Not from me, lack of trying,
Right.
but is they're never at conferences. I never see them anywhere, but they are humongous. And that whole like mine, right? That whole like mine piece, as opposed to our, right? I'm trying to get my camera right. Our, right? The the closed fist thing. And so,
Right.
and that's kind of what we're all about here, Tim. A team, Tim, and with Jesse and all of us is being better together. Being able to offer some nuggets of advice, hopefully here and there. Tim and I have been talking about, like, do we keep going? Do we move it to once a month? What does this look like? It's a lot of work for us. And fortunately, Tim Schnur has been really picked up that mantle in the last couple of months, because I got a company that I'm trying to build, and you've got a thing that you're trying to build, and we're like, bah! And so, where do we go from here? I don't know. I do enjoy having these conversations week after week. I feel like, and I hope that the MSPs get value out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, and I think that's, to me, it's a forced way to get together and talk with two people that I respect in the industry and exchange ideas. And you have to be intentional about those kinds of things. So we just happen to broadcast it on the internet.
And bring in a guest every once in a while,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
No, and I think you're right. And it goes right back to all the way back to the beginning of our conversation. And that's having that accountability, right? Having that cadence. And kind of all of us working better together. So we've got about 5 or 10 minutes left here. Jesse, I'm going to pull you up. I'm going to let you talk for a few minutes about kind of reflect over the year, reflect over like key takeaway, because we always like to have a key takeaway.
Yeah. The takeaway of my takeaways.
It's like making you bigger.
Yeah, this is fine. The inception of takeaways. All right, what is my inception of takeaways? What's my takeaways from the takeaways? I guess I would say that probably it's interesting because it feels like it has been much longer than a year, but I also can't believe that it's been a year already. And going back and being forced to look at some of these episodes that we've done and some of the really great guests that we've brought on, I just feel very thankful to be able to have met both Tim and Tim and have been invited to be a co-host of this show. I've learned a lot, and I hope that our audience has learned a lot. And so I'm really excited to see where the future takes this show and where the future takes the MSP community in general. I think a shifting left and risk-led approach, of course, is the way that MSPs are going to move into the next decade as leaders and help level up the SMB nations in their respective nations most effectively.
Awesome. And I love that, right? I think, and it's a little bummer that we don't have the other Tim here, but I'm not going to speak on his behalf. But, thinking over the past year of doing these, and actually it's been a little bit longer, but than a year. I think, Mr. Schnur and I, it's probably been almost close to 2 years, kind of on and off, but officially every week for a year here. And for those of you that haven't subscribed to the podcast, head on over to teamtim.live. You can actually listen to these on your favorite thing. I always forget to mention that. Do the subscribe to podcast, because people don't necessarily want to watch these live every week, but they would be willing to listen. So when I think back of the past year, I don't know. There's a lot of things that come to mind when I think about key takeaways. It's, I would say probably the most important thing to me personally would be all of us working for the betterment of the community and ultimately the betterment of the small business. While we focus a lot on helping and educating MSPs, I really hope that it trickles down into the small business, right? Forbes released their thing a while back, and the number of businesses are in the millions. 90 some odd percent of the businesses in the United States alone are less than 10 humans. And if you, if, I'm going to come off here real quick. There's a great YouTube video. It's by Admiral. Here, I literally have it right here. It is by Admiral William McRaven. If you haven't watched his UT, University of Texas, commencement speech, you should. Whenever I get down, whenever I get frustrated, whenever I go and watch his commencement speech. And I do that because there's a thing in the beginning. And this is really kind of my mantra in a sense. There's a thing in the beginning where he talks about there are 8,000 students. And if you as an individual want to change the world, all you have to do is help change the world of 10 people. And those 10 people change the world of 10 people. And that class of 8,000 or whatever can literally change the entire world in one generation.
Wow.
Right. By the time you do the math, 10 by 10 by 10 by 10,
Yeah.
exponential component squared, whatever the hell it is. But that's really how I see this team, Tim. There's only a couple of people watching the live stream today, and that's fine. But if we help change the lives of one or two of them, and they help change the lives of one or two small businesses, then that's a win for me.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, you know what? We've got 7 minutes left, Jesse. Do you have any last parting words?
It's okay to end early, my man.
I know. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. We will see you next week. And we are
See you guys.